All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the IB Nation Sports Talk Show. I am Vince DeDario. That's a Stiers. It's not the normal Stiers that's here on a Monday. That's Jesse Stiers, the progeny of Sean Stiers. Sean is still in recuperating mode. Doing well, though. Talked to him this afternoon. Doing very, very well. Hoping to be back for Saturday. So I've got my fingers crossed that I get my buddy in the press box and we can watch a little Notre Dame football. But so Sean is resting well. He's doing well. So all your prayers and everything have been very well received on his end. But we are going to have a little bit of fun today. Jesse was nice enough to join me today, just coming off of a Labor Day camp out. So he gets to have an actual roof over his head now and some technology at his fingertips. So Jess, what's going on, my man? Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day to you too. It's I was talking to my girlfriend earlier, and it's wouldn't be Labor Day without doing labor. I was getting all the camping equipment packed up this morning, and it was pouring down rain, and it wasn't going to stop for like 3 or 4 hours. So I just kind of sucked it up, did it in the rain, got home. It's still, I don't know what it is like over there, but it's still overcast and kind of rainy here. So, there's nothing else I'd like to do right now. Then I haven't gotten to watch, the recap of any of the game or kind of go back and rewatch, which I would like to do, and I'll do some point this week. But a lot of it is just kind of initial thoughts from watching in the game, and some obviously looking at some smaller things after the game. But overall, it's a good Labor Day weekend. It's the kind of the kickoff to the football season. We'll get NFL next week. The full college season will be rolling. So this is my favorite time of the year. It's they call it kind of the end of the summer, but I love the fall. I love the weather. I love the football time. So I couldn't be happier.
This is a great time of year. I mean, we got high school football, we got college football, we got the NFL, you got baseball playoffs right around the corner. I mean, everything kind of converges this time of year, and who doesn't love wearing a hoodie outside? I personally do.
Exactly.
You're wearing one now. That's my kind of weather. Hoodie and jeans, the leaves are turning. This is the best time of year. Super excited about it. And we are, of course, we're going to talk college football on this one, but we're going to have some other stuff we're going to talk about during rapid fire too, which I'm pretty fired up about as well. So without further ado, this is my third show since the game concluded on Saturday night. We did a post-game show well into the morning on Sunday. I think we wrapped up around 2:30 in the morning Eastern time. We also did our Upon Further review last night. If you haven't checked out either one of those shows, make sure you do, either on the podcast or over on YouTube. And of course, as Sean always says, give us a like. Hit that subscribe button. Share it with your family and friends. We'd all appreciate that. But today is Jesse's first time to kind of give his ideas and thoughts about, this Notre Dame game that we saw against Ohio State, the number 2 team in the country, I think we need to remind people at times. And it was in Columbus. And I know you are a resident of Ohio, but if I don't go back to Ohio, it'll be too soon. Did not have a great experience outside of the football game with the crazy people that were there. But I want your kind of takeaways from this game, both positive, negative. I mean, they did lose the game, so obviously there's some negative to go around. But Jesse Stiers, tell me what you think.
The floor is officially mine. The way I kind of want to go about this is, I kind of have some general thoughts of how I think the game went, and then kind of breaking it down offensively, defensively, some of the things I'd liked and didn't like, and within those respective sides of the ball. And I think the first thing that you kind of have to look at is, if you're going to tell me that the game will be 14-10 after 3 quarters against Ohio State, there's no doubt that I would take that time and time again. Especially considering that touchdown came at the end of the third quarter. So really, it was a game that was 10-7. Predominantly of the time Notre Dame was in control a lot of the game. The thing you have to look at too is on defensively, that first touchdown they gave up against Ohio State in the first half, the only score they gave up, Ohio State started with the ball around the 50-yard line. So that's a tough spot for your defense to be in. I think if you play out that scenario over and over, I would take, the starting point at the end of the third quarter being a 14-10 game, considering who you're playing and the atmosphere and all those things. That I think that's very, very positive thing to look at. But the main story of this game is that Notre Dame, in my opinion, really didn't get aggressive enough when they had the lead, when they were up that 10-7 and the defense was just getting punt after punt after punt. And, that really came back to bite them because, they weren't going to come scorching back. The offense and the game plan wasn't built around, coming back, in one quarter down 2 possessions, essentially. When they went down those 11 points, their offense isn't built to come back in a scorching manner. So I really think the offense didn't do enough when they had the lead. I think that they could have done more to get aggressive and really know that, Ohio State was going to have to at some point have a final kind of kick or push in them, and they needed to have some sort of cushion or, be ready to take that blow. Another thing that I took away from the game, or, a big factor, and everyone knows this, and, Marcus Freeman certainly knows it. He talked about it briefly in his press conference today, is, they quite frankly, they couldn't finish in the fourth quarter when they needed to. Obviously Ohio State scored that touchdown at the late end of the back half of the third quarter, and then scored a really, another long possession where they ate a lot of clock, ran the ball throughout the fourth quarter. And, that was Ohio State's, kind of moment, because throughout the game, you heard them talk about Ryan Day saying that Ohio State wanted to establish an identity of this year of, we can run the ball and we need to as well. We can get physical. We're not just this flashy, showy offense that's just going to throw the ball around, and air it out. So you got to give kudos to Ohio State in that regard of they executed their game plan in the fourth quarter and really took the game home. And I think that's the main story. And I was talking to you about this earlier before we went on, Vince, is Notre Dame you can admit that Notre Dame did a lot of things really well in this game, but they also, as a result of that, did some things that weren't very good. And I think the things that you got to focus on when you're playing the number 2 team in the country are the things that they did really well, and use the other, situations where they didn't do as well to learn. And I think that's what Marcus Freeman was really trying to say, in the press conference today, is they are super aware of what went wrong and what they need to do. And so now it's, identifying that, admitting that, and just doing things to get better and not allow that to happen again. So those are some of my kind of overall key takeaways from the game. I think I'll start on the defensive side of the ball, because I thought that side played better as a unit than the offense. I thought they did better things than the offense. The defense really put on a clinic for the first 3 quarters of the game. Kind of talked about that earlier. The first touchdown OSU scored was a product of the field position when they practically started at midfield. And those were only, the offensive points for Ohio State in the first half. Notre Dame gave up 1 touchdown, defensively to this high-powered, best offense in the country type, offense. And, I thought, a lot of Ohio State fans would blame this fact that, Smith and Jigba got hurt. And, well, that was a product of, Notre Dame coming out and just being more physical.
Right.
They took the punch to Ohio State. And, Ohio State has depth everywhere. You can't, I'm not saying that they're using that as an excuse, but Ohio State has a lot of depth offensively. And I really liked what Notre Dame did defensively to disguise their coverages. They played 2 safeties over top, which allowed, a big net, allowed for, their corners to not have to worry so much about being burned. And it really forced Stroud to go underneath and kind of take his plays 3-4 yards at a time, make his reads. They really got him off his first read, which was really beneficial. If you can get a quarterback off his primary read, that's something that's really good. And I thought Notre Dame executed that really well. So, I on the defensive side of the ball, I would have liked them to get a little bit more pressure with their defensive front. There was times where they just weren't getting home. They couldn't get Stroud down to the ground. There's a couple plays, on that drive where they scored with, the length of the field there towards the end, where Stroud made some really good throws on the rollout along the sideline that only a Heisman contending, top 5 type NFL draft quarterback is going to make. And you just got to tip your hat in those situations, because, I guarantee you there's probably not another quarterback on this schedule that makes those kind of throws, rolling towards the sideline and just kind of putting it on a dime like that. So that last drive was really a combination of Ohio State, doing the things that the number 2 team in the country should do, and that's finishing a game and finishing out drives and getting the third down conversions, because that's when, there was a 3rd and 3 where Stroud rolled out to the sideline. I want to say the other one was at least a 2nd and long, or maybe a 3rd down too. So, they really executed towards the end, and it just sucks because it almost feels like a waste. But, Notre Dame's, I think I saw Ohio State had 11 possessions, and out of those 11 possessions, you can really say that the defense only got beat like twice. And so, 2 out of 11 possessions, I'll really take that against what's considered the best offense in the country. So defensively, those are the things I liked. Offensively, Notre Dame wanted to establish the run game, which was obvious through their 2 tight end packages. We saw that a lot early, which I was fine with because that was the game plan. They wanted to control. They wanted to establish a run game. They wanted to control time of possession. They wanted to limit the opportunity for turnovers and that kind of thing. However, the running game just really never got going to the degree that they wanted to. And at that point, it's what are you going to do to kind of how long are you going to ride that out before you get into something else? Because I was looking at some of the advanced stats today. The average point of contact for Notre Dame running backs was 0.4 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. That means they're getting met at the line of scrimmage. I mean, practically at the line of scrimmage, on all of their run plays, which isn't really ideal. And, Marcus Freeman kind of brought it up, but the offensive line is still so young. And then you throw in Patterson not being able to play, and you're going to see some of those things exploited with a combination of when your best player is not playing and some of these younger guys. Blake Fisher, yes, he's really good, but he only played 3 games last year, and this is, you kind of saw that. Right,
2 games. This is his 3rd. Yeah.
You saw that kind of come back because there were like the delayed blitz that got to Buckner, where he was trying to throw that fade up the sideline to Lorenzo Styles, where he was just overthrew him. That's a product of a delayed blitz, and he has to someone has to keep their head on the swivel to pick up one of those guys. And there was some things that the Ohio State defensive line did really well. They played well, and you have to tip your cap again to Ohio State doing some of those things really well as well. But kind of going back to what I was talking about, the offense needed to open up a little bit more, in my opinion. At some point, it couldn't be about limiting a chance for error. It had to be taking calculated shots to go and win the game when you're up 10-7. And I think that's the frustrating part is when you're up 10-7 against Ohio State and you're on the road and you're kind of struggling, you're sputtering, you got to do things to get the offense going a little bit or take some shots, because 10-7 wasn't going to last forever. You knew Ohio State was going to have, something else kind of left in the tank. And I personally believe that Reese and the offense could have got a little more creative in the second half with their adjustments, compared to what they were doing in the first half, because Ohio State was going to make their own adjustments. They saw what Notre Dame's game plan was. And so I think Tommy Reese needed to have some things kind of ready, to counter Ohio State's counter, I guess, if you will. And, they kept running out of those 2 tight end sets a lot to establish the run game, which helps you get one-on-one matchups, but you have to exploit those one-on-one matchups. You have to, that tight end seam route was beautiful in the first half, and I don't doubt that it would have been there in the second half. And, running Tyree out on the perimeter with a one-on-one matchup and using his speed, I just felt like they could have done more in the passing game in the second half to take more shots and really get some plays going to try to build on the lead rather than kind of being okay or comfortable with the 10-7 game.
That was very thorough, and I appreciate it, Jesse Stiers. That's good stuff, man. But you're right. I mean, everything you said is accurate. There's no doubt about it. And look, Notre Dame had their opportunities. They were, whether you want to blame Tommy Reese or whether you want to take Marcus Freeman's word for it in his press conference today, that he pretty much instructed Reese to call a game a certain way. Whoever you want to lay the blame, and either way is accurate, to be honest with you. They weren't aggressive enough in the second half. They were playing with a 10-7 lead like they had a 2-3 score lead. That's what it felt like to me. And there were opportunities where they could have taken advantage of it, and they didn't. And the defense, on the other hand, they took some chances. And yes, it bit them in the butt when they blitzed both their safeties on 3rd and 11. They didn't execute it. And Marcus Freeman was very clear on it. He's like, yeah, that was our call, and we all agreed on it. He said Al Golden came to us, and he talked about this in the press conference today. He said, I like this call here, and everybody agreed, including Marcus Freeman. They just didn't execute it, right? The safeties were too deep. They were late coming in, and Jaden Mickey bit on a false step to the outside. He lined up properly. He lined up with inside leverage. And I think people need to understand that. We talked about it last night in the show. We had a screenshot right before the snap. He was lined up to the inside of the hash, and the receiver was lined up on the outside of the hash. He had inside leverage where he's supposed to be, but he bit to the outside. it wasn't even a great move, but he got inside. The receiver ended up getting inside leverage. Mickey had to do a complete 360, and that's why he was behind. Great throw, great recognition by Stroud. That was the game winner. They took a chance. It bit him in the butt. Bottom line, the offense didn't really take any chances. They didn't take enough chances. That's where I'm at with that. So it is in the past. It is, we're going to talk a little bit about Marcus Freeman's press conference. There's a couple things I want to touch on, but this is definitely a game, and I think this is the most important part, and Marcus Freeman was very clear on that when he was talking at the press conference today. This is an opportunity for us to learn about our mistakes. It's an opportunity to move forward. We've got a lot of season ahead of us. He's like, we practiced for 300 days for 12 opportunities, 12 guaranteed opportunities. And one is in the bag. So they got 11 left, right? Their focus is on Saturday. Their focus is on Marshall. Their focus is on what is moving forward. And I think that's where the focus should be, right? I mean, that's how it has to be. You have to learn from your mistakes. It's going to tell me a lot about this team on how they practice this week. Is the O-line okay with their performance? Are they going to come out, ticked off? I don't think they're going to be allowed to not be ticked off because of who their coach is, right? And mistakes were made all around. So what does that look like? Are they back to the grindstone? How does that work? That's going to be the interesting thing, for me to see moving forward.
Yeah, and I think a big thing to look at in this situation is that Notre Dame still did a lot of good things on Saturday, and they just couldn't quite, finish when they needed to. And you have to realize that this team is so incredibly young in the aspect that they have a lot of guys playing in positions for the first time. You saw a lot of guys in the secondary step up against one of the best offenses in the country, and the secondary was really going to be, a big kind of question mark, and they really stood up and rose to the occasion. And, I know Cam Hart struggled there for a little bit, but, he got some relief, and they were able to, he was able to come back in later in the game and continue to make plays, which is a good thing to see. So like you were saying, it's what can we take from this game, and how are they going to use it as fuel going forward, knowing that they were this close to beating the number 2 team in the country in their stadium to open up the season. And that's another big factor that plays into this. This is the first game of the season. This is the first time you're seeing live time going against someone else other than your own team. And you're going to learn from a lot of things. You learn, no matter who the opponent is going to be, there's nothing's going to be perfect, and there's going to be so many things to learn from in the first game. It just happened to be that this opponent was Ohio State, and it was, the game, the national game of the week, essentially. And so there was a lot of expectations and a lot of eyes on the game. But this team is still young, and they're still learning how to play together. And to be thrown against Ohio State, a really good team in the first game, I think they showed a lot of really good things, a lot of maturity. They showed a lot of preparation, and just, a lot of overall commitment to the game plan and hustle. You saw them out there busting their butts, playing hard, playing physical, not giving up on plays, the excitement, being well coached. There was a lot of good things to take away from this game. So I think going forward, getting to play a team like Marshall next week, I think you're really going to see, both sides of the ball click really well. At least that's what you would like to see. But
absolutely,
after going against a high opponent like Ohio State, I think that, we're going to see a lot of better things next week. And I think that's even more exciting, because the more games we get to see the team get better and kind of that momentum start to build.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a few items from the press conference that we may not have, touched on just yet. Obviously, we touched on the double safety blitz. Freeman was very clear on that. It was a call that they made, et cetera, et cetera. It was just a mistake by Jaden Mickey, by a true freshman, et cetera. I want your thoughts on that play specifically. Is that a play, if you were the defensive coordinator, is that a play you are going to call there, given the situation, given the down and distance? It was 3rd down and 11. You're up 10-7. They're in plus territory, probably holding to a field goal if they don't get that. What are you thinking about that? Because I think all of us watching it live, it looked like Jaden Mickey thought he had safety help. But it turns out when you watch it back, that is not the case at all. And then Marcus Freeman kind of reiterated that in the press conference. So I just want Jesse Steyer's defensive coordinator. What are you doing in that particular scenario?
So it's so hard to say because, in retrospect, it already happened. And so it's hard to say, this is what I would have done. But I think in real time, there's things that I would have considered. I like the idea of blitzing and getting someone in Stroud's face, just disrupting,
Sure.
getting someone. And I like the fact that it came from up the middle, because to me, when you're getting, pressure up the middle, the quarterback feels it more so than the outside pressure, because from the outside pressure, you can step up and still get into your throw. But when you're up in the middle like that, there's nowhere to really step to. The guy is literally, kind of in your face. So I like the idea of doing that. I know it is 3rd and 11. What I don't like is going cover 0. I think if I were to, because like I said, I like the idea of blitzing. I like getting it up the middle. I think I would have went with more of a cover 1 type situation and just brought one of the safeties,
Sure,
and really left that other guy in the middle of the field. I don't think you had to commit both safeties on that play, given the down and distance, given the fact that Ohio State's field goal kicker did miss a field goal in similar range kind of earlier in the game. I think, you played such a well game, and I do like, rolling the dice in that situation. But once again, I think you have to leave someone in the middle of the field, because, like Herbstreit and Fowler were talking about the entire game. That's what was helping Notre Dame so much and disrupting Stroud up until that point, is that those safeties were back there. So it didn't allow Stroud, to hit that deep kind of home run ball, or those routes that they like, over the middle or deeper. They had to go with the shorter routes. And, in 3rd and 11, you have to get something deeper. So I just personally would have left one of those safeties back there. I like the concept of blitzing and bringing it up the middle, but cover 1 would have been kind of my safety net. I think they just they sold out too much in that instance, given kind of what was on the line in that situation. But like I said, it's so easy for me to say
absolutely
right now. But yeah, I don't think I would have vacated the middle of the field like that. It's just, I think that's not too easy for Stroud, because, he struggled all night. But if you're going to leave a spot open on the field, I wouldn't leave the middle of the field open, given kind of the down and distance and what they needed to get in on that play. But that's just my personal opinion.
No. And that's what I asked for. And that's perfect. For me, I don't necessarily mind the call if Tariq Bracy is still in the game. That is the biggest bugaboo for me with that particular call. Tariq Bracy was the best defensive back in the game last night.
Very good point, because Bracy played the best game. It was amazing watching him out there. But continue. Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. He had the best game of any defensive back on the field, whether offense, Notre Dame, Ohio State. He played the best of anybody. If he's still in the game, I'm fairly confident in 0 coverage. And obviously it was not executed, which hurt. It makes it look even worse. I mean, let's be honest. It makes it look even worse, because you're just taking those 2 guys out of the play, essentially. So knowing that I've got a true freshman in the slot, and I believe, if my notes are correct, that's the first time he only played 12 snaps, and that was the first time he played a nickel snap all night long. I'm keeping a safety back. I'm going cover 1 just because of that. If Bracy's still in the game, take your shot, man. Take your chance. I have no problem with it, because I think Bracy covers their 4th or 5th receiver, whatever Jackson is. I mean, he clearly wasn't a starter. He was playing because there were 2 wide receivers hurt for Ohio State. That's the only reason he was in the game. And I feel very confident that Tariq Bracy covers him no problem if he's in the game. But he was out of the game. He was cramping up. I just don't know if you do that with a true freshman. That's my only armchair quarterback situation for the defense, really. The bottom line, and we kind of roll into the next point here from the press conference, Marcus Freeman talked about we have to finish. We played a great game for 3 quarters. You have to finish. And that 95-yard drive that Ohio State put together basically took the soul from the defense. And they had opportunities to make plays in that drive. They flushed Stroud out of the pocket. Stroud made plays. The offensive line made plays. Notre Dame didn't on that drive specifically. That was where the game really shifted. It was that 95-yard drive, man. And you could almost see like Notre Dame's defensive soul like flying away as that drive got
closer. It was just body blow after body blow, especially with Mayan Williams in there. And then, you bring in Travion Henderson, and they even made a comment at one point, Travion Henderson is more of the elusive back, going to make you miss. And then he's all of a sudden putting his foot in the ground and trying to run you over after, just trying to have to deal with Mayan Williams. And I'll tell you what, as a linebacker, that is not a good feeling when you have when you have that bowling ball of, when a running back is not going to basically try to make you miss and he's just going to put his foot in the ground, and you just got to buck up in the hole. And you could tell it was just body blow after body blow. And, it's kind of funny to think about because Ryan Day almost took Notre Dame's approach and applied it in the fourth quarter. And that's what kind of, won the game for him. Is he said, we're going to hanker down here. We're going to run the ball down your throat, go power on power, big on big. And that's what they did. They ate up the clock. They controlled the whole fourth quarter. They put together their best drive of the game, and that won them the game. So that was kind of the interesting thing for me to see is they flipped, Ohio State flipped the script in that fourth quarter and said, okay, we're going to kind of basically do what you guys wanted to do this game. And like I said, run the ball, eat the clock, and get a big timely score. And that's exactly what they did. So it would have been nice to see, the defense make a stand on that drive because they knew that the run was coming. It seemed like, majority of the time, but they just executed better. And, kind of going back to the main topic here of finishing the game, I think that's a product of these, Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman getting more time together, getting those things are going to naturally take care of themselves. As things go on, these players will learn how to finish together. They'll learn. Marcus Freeman will learn how to get his players to finish in the fourth quarter. So that's not something I'm super worried about going forward. Just given who the opponent was, given the talent, the environment that they were placed in, just the better team kind of finished that game, and that's okay for where Notre Dame is at right now, in my opinion. I think if we play this game again, after 6 months here, 3-4 months, and I think there would be a different outcome. I think Notre Dame would, have a better chance of finishing, and you would see, a different game kind of unfold 3-4 months from now compared to the first game of the season and, Marcus Freeman and his staff getting acquainted with all these players.
Another point that Marcus Freeman, and it seemed like he wanted to make sure that he got this out. Now, whether it's a smoke screen or whether it's damage control or what, he made a point to say, look, I had an offensive game plan in mind. I had a plan going into this game that I instructed Tommy Rees to follow, and he did that. And right or wrong, Tommy Rees is getting a lot of flack for his play calling on Saturday night, from me included. I'll be the first one to admit it, from me included, and I'm still not happy about it. So is it right or wrong that we're only blaming Tommy Rees, or since now we heard Marcus Freeman talk about this is the game plan that he instructed Tommy to go with, do we shift some of that blame? Like, where do you fall on this, and how do you feel? Where do you think Irish fans should be? Their ire should be right now.
I really thought that Marcus Freeman and company put together the game plan that was going to be required to beat Ohio State, and I think as a head coach, it's completely reasonable to say, this is how I want to manage this game. This is how I'd like this game to kind of be run. Take that and do whatever you want with it. It's not like he told Tommy Rees, these are the plays I want you to run. He said, this is the game, and this is how I want the game to go. Tailor your offense to do that. And I think that, the way that the game plan was set up, that's how they were going to win. If Notre Dame was going to win, it was exactly what their game plan was going to be Saturday night. They just didn't completely fulfill it. And I think, like we were talking about, it's one thing to have a game plan and to go into the game and, you're executing, you're doing what you wanted, because that's what they were doing. They were up 10-7, basically with the third quarter winding down. But at some point, you kind of have to abandon the game plan, we were talking about in game. And there's just certain things you don't plan for and certain situations that arise, and you have to be able to say, okay, we've gotten to where we are right now because of the game plan, but it's time to take shots. It's time to open up and use some of our more creative plays and personnel that we've been practicing this week and get a score here and screw the game plan, because right now it's about getting a score and doing everything we can to get a score. So I don't mind kind of, what you were talking about. And I don't think Tommy Rees should be, he was doing what he was instructed, but I think at some point as a collective coaching staff, they need to say, okay, game plan, let's set this to the side. We need a score now. Tommy, what can you do to open up the playbook here a little bit more and get us a score? So I think that's the direction I would have liked to see things go. I think Tommy was just doing, kind of essentially what his boss was telling him to do, for what was required. But at some point they needed to get away from it and take their shots. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. No, it absolutely does. And I agree with you. Changes needed to be made. And they were made slightly. And we talked about that in the not post game show, but upon further review last night, we showed people on film how things were changed. They just didn't execute it, right? They didn't execute it. So here's my next question for you. In typical Notre Dame fashion, people either seem to love the Notre Dame quarterback, Tyler Buckner, or they seem to think that he's clearly not the answer. Somebody said that they're still one position player away from being a good team, and that's at quarterback, all of these different things, right? What are your thoughts? Number one, I know I'm going off script here, but I still want to get your opinion on it. What's your opinion of Tyler Buckner, number one, from the one game that we've seen him play where he's been the starting quarterback? And number two, did it feel to you like he was a bit handcuffed and wasn't really allowed to show what he can do in this particular game?
Yeah, and that's before you kind of, got that last point in there, that's kind of what I was predominantly thinking is Tyler Buckner did well for what he was asked to do in the game plan. He was asked to come out, establish a run game, and really throw passes kind of when needed, but they weren't high leverage passes. They weren't really deep, considered deep shots on the field. He wasn't going through much progressions. It was kind of almost like, here's where we want you to go with the ball, just kind of do it. So yeah, I felt like Buckner played well for what he was given, but I thought he also could have excelled in some of his other situations. I think there were a couple, I have to go back and watch, but in live time, it seemed like there were some RPO reads where I really thought he could have kept it on some of them and really, kind of yanked it out of the back's belly and kind of picked up some extra yards here and there. But yeah, I think I would like to see more out of Buckner because I don't think we saw his full arsenal of what he can really do as a quarterback. But I do think that for what he was asked to do, he executed at a pretty good level. Is there things he could have done better? Obviously, yeah. But you can't get mad at a quarterback for not showing you things that he wasn't necessarily asked to do.
Great answer. Love where your head's at with that one, kid. All right. Next point, I kind of went through and, just kind of went in order, to be honest with you. Let's talk about Jarrett Patterson. Obviously, when you lose your All-America caliber guard captain from the offensive line, it hurts. And obviously, Marcus Freeman was asked about Jarrett Patterson, why he didn't play. They gave him a shot during pregame. He tried to give it a go. He just couldn't go. Andrew Kostafik goes in for him, plays left guard, and the offensive line struggled. What are you thinking and doing with Jarrett Patterson moving forward, considering who Notre Dame has on their schedule coming up? You got Marshall, you got Cal, and then you go on the road, I believe, to North Carolina after a bye. So what are your thoughts on Jarrett Patterson, and where do you go with him?
At this point, if he wasn't going to be ready for Ohio State, I think you kind of just have to tell him or be in the mindset of, okay, then let's just wait till he's 100%. Let's not push anything. Let's not get him back just to have him back. He already kind of missed, in this first month of the season, he already missed what was going to be the most important game. And, they still did a lot of things well and I guess you could say got by, without him. You'd obviously like to see him in there because they're going to be better as a unit. But when someone's hurt like this and you're playing Marshall and you're playing Cal and then you have a bye week after that, there's no real reason to rush anyone back. I think you just wait till he's 100%. He has no pain. He's all comfort, and you can just roll into the season after that. Because to me, what's worse is if you not force him out there, but you try to rush him in for a Marshall game, a game in which you can probably win without him. He gets further hurt and he's out for the Clemson or the USC type situations where you want to have your best unit out there. And even North Carolina, their offense is still a very, they're good. I know they put up a lot of points against a kind of average team, but, they still did a lot of things well. So I would like to have him back for North Carolina. And at this point, I think there's no real reason to rush until he's 100%.
Well, North Carolina is almost a month away at this point. So, you got a lot of opportunity to rest him. You're going to be able to win against Marshall and Cal without Jarrett Patterson. And If he's 100%, you put him in, period. You put him in, no problem. But if he's not, why push it? Because you're going to need him down the stretch. You're going to need him, I think, for North Carolina. You're going to need him for BYU. You're going to need him for Clemson. You're going to need him for USC. You're going to need him for all of those different things. Or all those different games. So, yeah, I'm in a total agreement with you. You hold him out now. Like, it would have been great if he could have gone against Ohio State. It'd have been great. Even a 90%, 85% Jarrett Patterson would have been better than the alternative. It would have been. Because not only would he have been better than his replacement, that's why he's a replacement, right? It's nothing against Kristofic, but there's a reason he's the backup, right?
I think that's my favorite part about depth charts that people fail to realize is like these coaches have been around them for months and all these things, and you see it's like there's a 1 and 2 for a reason. Everyone
100%, and it's hilarious to me what somebody said this on another podcast I was listening to when it comes to depth charts and how people get so riled up and so excited about guys they've literally never seen play in college, but they've got to be better than the guy that's in there. They got to be better.
Yeah, because things aren't going well. As soon as things aren't going well, there's got to be someone that's better. That's just magically going to fix everything. Coaching would be so easy if that were the case, Vince. You could just put in whoever and things would magically just be better.
Right, especially the kid that's never played. And you're good. You're clearly good. That's always my favorite. That's always my favorite because fans think that coaches don't put the best players on the field. They're just purposely, they just want to lose. They're purposely, whatever. Anyway, that's the coach and me talking. I've had too many conversations with parents on that one. So yes, that's Jarrett Patterson. Granted. Never mind. I was going to ask you a different question. We're going to get into that in rapid fire. I'm going to try to stick to the script here as much as possible. All right. So he talked about what he wants to see from his players moving forward, right? Big emotional game on the road. They had plane issues apparently coming home. They didn't get home to the wee hours of the night, so they gave him Sunday off. What are you if you're in Marcus Freeman's shoes, if you're a position coach on this team, what are you looking for from your players after a game like this and what they have to look forward to for the rest of the season? 11 games and a lot still standing in their way. What are you looking for when you see these guys come into the meeting room today, practice field tomorrow, etc.?
The main thing I'm looking for is almost establishing this as the baseline. You say, okay, guys, this is the number 2 team in the country. These are the things that we did well. These are the things we did in preparation. These are, this is the effort you gave, and this is the outcome that we had. Now, what can we do this week, to do the things we did well even better? What can we do to fix our mistakes? And, the main thing, and I think this is what Freeman talked about, is there needs to be more intensity this week than there was last week. Just because you're not playing Ohio State and, you're playing Marshall and it's on home and it's not a ranked opponent, you have to have a higher intensity this week. There needs to be a hunger and an urge to kind of, fix what happened last week and come out and show everyone this week that we've come out and we're even hungrier now. We learned from our mistakes. We upped our intensity. We had better practice. We got better as a unit. And so I really think that comes from establishing this Ohio State game as the baseline, because you can learn from so many things. It's the first game of the season. It doesn't really hurt them for their end goals at the end of the season, considering it's the first game of the season, where Ohio State's likely to end by the end of the season. Those things need to be taken into account. So if you settle on Ohio State being the baseline of, this is what we input and this is what our output was, okay, what more can we add to our input and, practice at a higher level, practice with a much higher, intensity, and see what our outcome can be, based off of that. So the main thing that I'm getting at is you just want these guys, and you want Freeman to bring out that hunger in them. You want these guys to be hungry dogs that just want to go out there every week and just be ready to prey on their opponents and learn from, everything that happened the week before and forget about it. It's so weird because you want to forget about the loss, but you still want to remember the things, that you did well and the things that you can do to get better for the next week going forward. So I really hope that we see these guys not take the loss too hard and really use it as motivation to get better for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Let me also ask you a question. We kind of covered this in the post-game show. But I wanted to get your opinion on this. So again, going off script here. So I'm dialing into that brain of yours. There were definite mistakes on the offensive line, right? Are you replacing people after one game of the season? Are you putting new starters in? Let's say Jarrett Patterson is healthy for Marshall. Okay. So in this scenario, Jarrett Patterson is healthy. So you have your pick of all of the offensive linemen on this team. Are you benching people? Do you have a new starting five? You're the coach. Go.
I'm not necessarily going with the new starting five. And I talked about this very, very early in this show is, outside of, with a healthy Patterson, they still have two young players, guys with, not a lot of experience, but are uber talented. And so when you throw in the Patterson not being there, you kind of have three kind of fresher guys or guys that have limited experience, kind of compared to your other two veterans on the line. And so I don't think it's necessarily about replacing people. It's just learning how to, the offensive line is a web of guys. It's not, yes, it's an individual, but you're all working, together. So I think that the focus should be more on those guys coming together and spending a lot of time in the film room together of cues and ways that they can help each other out, because I think that they were executing at the level that they were supposed to. It's just, sometimes instead of, you saw a couple times Ohio State guys coming through untouched. Well, it's just because the offensive line guy didn't simply come off of his block. He didn't account for the guy that was showing late. And that's what you have to attribute to a good Ohio State defensive game plan, and they executed what they were supposed to. And those delay kind of pressures and things is you got to have your head on that swivel and knowing to come off of a double team and picking up a guy that's coming a little bit later. So I don't think it's necessarily a product of, the guy's talent and all those things. It's just a product of them working together as a connected five-man offensive line and going into the film room and really learning kind of the things that I just talked about, keeping your eyes active at all times, communicating with each other better on pressures and stunts and that kind of thing. And really that's only going to come with game experience. And so, the more you allow those guys to play together and not disrupt that kind of flow, you're going to get more game experience and really diving into that film and learning the tendencies from Marshall. As a group, they need to figure out what's going to be coming from Marshall. And like I said, the main thing is just keeping their head on a swivel. I really think that would take care of a lot of situations, is just actively looking for someone to block at all times. Because if you don't have your own man to actively block, there's got to be someone that you can get to, right? Like there's got to be someone that you can get your hands on. So I really like what they did. I just wish that it was a little bit more cleaned up. So I don't think I'd go full blown, okay, it's time to blow this up. I think it would just be more about tweaking some things. And that's what they're going to do. They have a great offensive line coach. He knows what needs to be done. He's a perfectionist himself. And I just don't think, you'll see those kind of mistakes again. And if you do, that's when you start to consider, okay, is this guy just not doing, executing how he's supposed to be? Because, at least when I was playing, a lot of times is, okay, you can mess up once, but when you start repeating the same mistake 2 and 3 times, it's obvious that you're just not getting it at that point. So.
Yeah, and I will reiterate what I said earlier. When you're fourth on the depth chart, there's a reason, okay? I love Rocco Spindler's high school film. I think he was one of the better recruits in that class. He's a good player. He's a good player. He is clearly, in the coach's eyes, the fourth best guard on this team. There's a reason for that, okay? So everybody just needs to tamp the brakes a little bit on a guy you've literally never seen play at the college level. And the spring game doesn't count, okay? So pump the brakes on Rocco Spindler. If he was good enough to play, he would have played last night over Andrew Kristofic. He would have. He was listed behind Jarrett Patterson on the depth chart for Ohio State, and Andrew Kristofic played left guard, okay? The depth chart for Marshall now has Andrew Kristofic backing up both guard positions. There's a reason for that, okay? So just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. Everybody just relax. I still have a lot of faith in Harry Hiestand. He's got a hell of a lot of first-round picks playing in the NFL right now.
All pro guys, not just first-round picks.
Yeah, exactly. He will get this offensive line right, okay? So I'm still sticking with that in my head. still very confident in Harry Hiestand and what he can do with this group. So everybody just take a freaking break on
a deep breath.
Throwing Harry Hiestand out with the bathwater. Okay. So settle down. All right. Got that off my chest. Okay. So that's it really from the Marcus Freeman press conference. Are you ready to jump into a little bit of rapid fire? Because we've got some fun stuff to talk about here.
I think we got through the heavy hitting stuff. So
yeah,
the rapid fire is always a nice steady decline after
just take a deep breath. Everybody can just take a deep breath, and we can just have a little fun here.
We can start to agree on things again.
Yes, absolutely. We can have a little bit of fun here and know that this Notre Dame team is about to whoop up on some people over the next few weeks. So.
And that's the exciting thing, is just looking at the way that the way that the team was prepared and came out to play compared to other big games of the past. It's like those things should make you excited as a fan. And the fact that it was a 10-7 game going, almost to basically the end of the third quarter is like, it just seemed like the team. I made a comment of it when I was watching it. I got happy seeing Marcus Freeman on the sideline as the head coach. He just looked like he was. I know the players like him, respect him more, that you could tell that they want to play for him more. They're giving more effort for him. Right. And those things are what should excite you, because, the talent in which he's bringing in as well, combined with the things I just talked about. Like, he just looks, like I said, I got happy seeing Marcus Freeman on the sideline. He just looked like that guy that should be leading Notre Dame right now. And it just helps too that he's, he's a young, very well-mannered, demeanored guy. And I like everything about Marcus Freeman and the direction in which things are going.
And look, hey, here's the fun part, right? What was one of our biggest detractors of the past regime at Notre Dame when it came to big games? That they weren't ready to play.
Right.
They weren't. It was a business trip, and it was just like any other game. And all. Look, this team was ready to play. They played hard. They played their butts off. Did they make mistakes? Yeah. Did they have some issues with some execution? Yeah, no doubt about it. But they came to play. So check that box right there. Marcus Freeman knows how to get guys ready to play. Check. Okay. I think we saw last night, there's other people that don't know how to get people ready to play a big game. Okay. So I'll leave
Perfect
it at
ending to that.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Rapid fire, Mr. Stiers. Here we go. Question number 1. This weekend of college football was blank.
This weekend of college football was fun. It was the start of the season. We talked about this early. It's just the kickoff of all kind of football. I know high school football started a couple of weeks ago, but to me, this is the true start of the season, and it was fun. It was fun watching, Iowa not score a touchdown but beat a team like 7-5. It was fun watching Cincinnati go into Arkansas and play a really good team after losing a lot of guys last year to the NFL, and Luke Fickell having his guys ready to play, and KJ Jefferson for Arkansas is a really good quarterback, and there was just a lot of fun games to watching Utah go into Florida. I think Florida's got some good presence. I think they're kind of sticking their foot in the ground of being good again too, and that doesn't take anything away from Utah, because that was just a really good fun game. And then it was exciting. It was fun. It was everything that football should really be. So I'm really happy with how things turned out. Obviously, I wanted Notre Dame to win, and we talked about this. I think the part that hurts the most is when you have a shot at winning and you lose, that's more hurtful than getting blown out by 40 or 50 points. So
no doubt.
I loved that college football was back, and it was just a fun weekend having it all back. Labor Day weekend, you get time off, you get to watch a bunch of football, and I think it's just overall the best time of the year.
And I'm first of all, I'm going to steal Mike. I haven't agreed with much that Mike has said over in the chat today, but I definitely agree with this, even though he spelled it wrong. Awesome is my fill in the blank here. The college football weekend was awesome. There was so much football to watch. There was so much to take in. And the best part about Labor Day weekend being the first weekend of games, you've got games on Saturday. You had a good game last night. You got another, I don't think it's going to be a good game, but you got another game tonight between Clemson.
Get to see what Clemson's about,
right,
though.
Exactly. So you got Clemson, Georgia Tech. So there's still interest from our point of view, right? Because can DJ Uiagalelei turn into a decent quarterback? All of these different things, right? And I may or may not have a parlay on tonight's game. So hope
Right.
PJ throws the ball around a little bit. But the weekend was awesome. It was awesome. But yes, of course, as a Notre Dame fan, as a person who follows Notre Dame, of course, I wanted Notre Dame to win. And of course, I was salty after the game on Saturday, right? But overall, the weekend was awesome. It was just college football left and right. It was so much fun to watch. It was so much fun to be a part of. And as much as I disliked most of the people I interacted with on Saturday, seeing the dotting of the I at Ohio Stadium, being in that stadium and just being around a college football atmosphere was so cool. And whenever I get the opportunity to do that, it's fantastic. So it was a great weekend, man. It was a really good weekend. I just wish Notre Dame obviously would have pulled it off. I'm not going to lie. The outcome of last night's game definitely took a little bit of the sting off of Saturday night. I will be the first one to admit that. It felt good, even though there was a chance that they were going to win there at the end. But the fact that his best tight end he's ever seen as a freshman is the one that missed the block for the PAT block also made me pretty happy. And I bet Michael Mayer was pretty happy about that too, because I think he's got something to say about being the best freshman tight end that's ever played for Brian Kelly. But c'est la vie, they lost by a point. So I'm a pretty happy camper all around on that one. All right, question number 2. Your biggest surprise of the weekend in sports was blank. You can go anywhere you want with this one.
So this one was tough because I was camping a lot. I was
That's true.
In and out of being dialed into college football and sports and all of those things. So I think the biggest surprise to me, or the limited accessibility I had, really was what Florida was able to kind of do with Utah, and more specifically what their quarterback Anthony Richardson was kind of able to do as well, because there was a lot of questions about what kind of quarterback play would Florida get? Would they be able to step up? We've seen Florida not kind of be up and down, record wise, and kind of where they're finishing the last couple of years. So for them to open up the season against a really good Utah team was the biggest surprise to me. I didn't think that they would win that game. I thought it would be a good game, but I was pleasantly surprised, with how their quarterback played and them overall winning that game. I think that's a really good win for them. I don't have anything against Florida or, their personal success. It's not like it's Miami or Florida State or, it's programs like that. So, seeing that happen, I was surprised, and it was nice to see, kind of that, like I said, that quarterback kind of come to age a little bit quicker than expected. So that was the biggest surprise for me this weekend.
So I'm going to count Friday as the weekend. So I guess I'm cheating here a little bit, but since I'm hosting, I'm allowed to cheat. Brian does it all the time. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. And it's the expansion of the college football playoff. Like we were talking
about that.
We were talking about it months ago, and they poo-pooed it. They didn't vote. They voted it down. It's like, oh, well, okay, I guess we're going to put that in our back pocket for a while. And then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, oh, we got a 12-team college football playoff, the exact format that Swarbrick worked on, that he co-authored, and we might have it by 2024. It's like, what? Like, okay, all right. Like it was like almost in like the classic Friday media dump where you just like, if you don't want something to, really catch on, you kind of do it like the Friday afternoon before the weekend, that kind of thing. It was like Friday afternoon. Somebody texted me, was like, hey, what do you think about the college football playoff? I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? It's the first weekend of Labor Day. Like, what are you talking about? And the quick Google search was like, holy crap, there's a 12-team playoff coming. Like, that shocked the crap out of me. I had no idea that was coming. And so that's my big surprise from the weekend, that we're going to have a 12-team college football playoff here soon, before my kid gets to college, which is crazy talk to me.
Yeah, I think the craziest part is like they're like, boom, 12 team playoff, but it's like not implemented for several years. So it's like you just drop a big bombshell like that, and then you just gotta wait X amount of years for that to go on. And I thought it was also funny that you saw a lot of people after what happened, someone in the comments said, well, what about Georgia and Oregon? Was that a big surprise? And I've never been sold on Oregon, and their whole coaching staff just left for Miami. So, I didn't really think that that was too big of a deal. Like, yeah, by, the point margin. But I think the funny part is like people were joking that that's kind of the matchup that you might get with a 1 versus potential 12 in the college football playoff. So it never seems to be like they never take the baby steps. It's like 4-team bang all the way to like a 12 team. Like what happened to maybe an 8 or, kind of an intermediate step. So there's just a lot of things to kind of work out. But like I said, we're not going to see it for like 3 or 4 years. So it's like, It's a big bombshell just to kind of tease everyone for the upcoming years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also say, Mike's said, I brought him up a couple times. He says, I think we all knew it was going to 12 teams. They have to. It's not that I didn't think it was going to happen someday. It's the fact that it happened on Friday out of nowhere. Like, that's why it was a surprise. Yeah, I thought it was going to happen eventually. But the fact that they voted it down whenever they were talking about it last, they voted it down. I was like, oh, well, they're not going to worry about it for a while. And then all of a sudden, boom, we got it. And it's going to be here in 2 years. Like, oh, okay. Let's go. Let's roll with a 12-teamer. All right. Okay. Scale of 1 to 10. How surprised were you that we did not see Tobias Merriweather in the game Saturday night? Didn't get one play in. How surprised? 1 to 10.
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would put it up there at like a 6 or 7, mildly kind of surprised, but it fits into, what Notre Dame's game plan was. And that was a lot of like we were talking about 2 tight end personnel, trying to establish the run and that kind of situation. And they're obviously limited at wide receiver, but when you have a guy who you're not necessarily sure if he's ready yet, and, you're not running a ton of kind of wide receiver oriented, play design, I think it makes sense that he didn't get in there a lot. I think that his play and production is going to be a product of what the game plan is for that week. Are they looking to, exploit some safeties and let their wide receivers go a little bit? Or are they going to try to establish the run game a little bit? And, the times they did pass, it was obvious that they were more comfortable with the inexperienced Salerno in the game, to potentially not make the big mistakes that they were trying to avoid. But yet it kind of came back to bite them because Salerno had a costly, offensive pass interference call. So I am a little shocked that he wasn't on the field. I think personally, I know he might not be ready, but you gotta. I'm a fan of getting your best athletes on the field.
Absolutely,
because there's no way of getting them experience without giving them experience. Just when you're kind of struggling at the position group and that's going to kind of be a weakness, why not get these guys ready early? By the time next year comes around, he's going to be maybe the best wide receiver in the room at that point. So I'm shocked that they didn't get him out there, but I think we're going to see more of an, based on game plan and him getting more comfortable with the system. But I'd like to see him now just because of what I was talking. I like my most talented players to be out there, especially if that that's going to be kind of your weaker spot. Just get them the experience now so that by the time they're a sophomore or a junior, they're just ready to kind of take over by that point.
Well, and we know Wilkins and Colsey weren't 100% with injury. And so with those guys also being out, it just felt like it was a prime time to get Merriweather in there. And yes, Marcus Freeman did say during he kind of hemmed and hawed about it. He said it was either a hamstring or a knee. Like, he didn't really say specifically what the issue was with Merriweather. It felt like a bit of a smokescreen to me. But you're right. You get the best players on the field. There's a reason I put you in at tight end. Okay, you got to get your best athletes on the field.
Made a great catch too.
I have it on film. You get your best athletes on the field, Jesse Stiers. That's all there is to it. So, but I agree. It's like a 10 for me. I was shocked because a lot of the video that I had seen, or what we heard coming out of camp, the practices that we saw that I put on video is what I was referring to. He was involved. Like, he was getting reps with the ones, and that told me he was going to get reps at Ohio State, and he didn't. I understand your point that it wasn't really necessarily in the game plan. The wide receivers clearly were not targeted all that much. I think they were targeted like 8 times the entire night. Yeah,
then Mayer took about 50% of those.
Yes, and Mayer was targeted 8 times, and then the wide receivers as a whole were targeted 8 times. So it's like, okay, so I get it. Maybe, since you weren't really throwing the ball around, you didn't need him in the game. Okay. But
I want to add another point, though, too.
All right, what do you got?
No, like when you're doing what Notre Dame was trying to do in this game, and that's establish the run game, make Ohio State commit to the box. When you're loading in 2 tight ends and you have a running quarterback with RPO, it gives you that chance for one-on-one matchups. And with a young quarterback, that's what you dream of, is one-on-one matchups. You don't have to worry about a safety coming over the top or anything like that. So if that's what you're looking for to establish the run game, and you want to work off getting one-on-one matchups, why not put your big framed fast wide receiver on the field to just beat someone one-on-one, throw it up to him? Like, that's what this offense needs, is like a Chase Claypool, a Michael Floyd type wide receiver who's just going to go up and just kind of take away some of Buckner's inability sometime in the passing game, because when you're an athlete like that, you could just throw it up. Like,
put it up.
Just put it up and let the freak athleticism of Merriweather go get the ball. And so that's what I was upset with, is like, if you're building on these opportunities to get one-on-one matchups, then let your best athletes go out there and try to win those one-on-one matchups. So that's where I'm frustrated at, on Merriweather and kind of the combination of how the game went. You can't tell me that Salerno was going to be your best matchup in one-on-one coverage. Like, he's not your best athlete. He's a good story, and he's, earned his spot on the team, but it's his spot. There's other situations where a guy like Merriweather would be the better choice, in my opinion. But, hopefully that's what we kind of see going forward. Hopefully this was just a very product of, the opponent, first game of the season, and that kind of thing. So we shall see.
All right. Let's turn the page to the professional ranks. Let's talk a little NFL. This is our last weekend without any NFL, without the actual regular season starting. I believe things get kicked off on Thursday night.
Yeah, 3 nights away.
Yeah, things get kicked off Thursday night. That's when the NFL kicks off. I know a lot of people in the chat are also NFL fans. This is our rapid fire section, so anything is possible. So we're going to talk a little NFL. We're going to do some preseason picks, Jesse. So we're not going to fly through them necessarily, but a little bit of analysis here and there. But I want to get your division winners, your 2 wild cards from each conference, and then I want your Super Bowl participants and a winner. Okay, so that's where we're gonna go. We'll go back and forth. So what we'll do, I'll pick a division. You give me your winner. I'll give you mine, and we'll kind of go that direction. Does that sound good?
That sounds perfect.
All right, here we go, my man. We're gonna start off. And help if I had the right thing pulled up. Here we go. We're going to start off in the AFC. We'll go alphabetical order. So AFC East, who is your winner of the AFC East?
I think there's no doubt that it's the Bills. I like what Josh Allen is as a quarterback. I think he's just a beast. He's a Patrick Mahomes type quarterback. Maybe not, quite. It's like 1A and 1B. I just, along with the defense that they've put together, the coaching staff that, who Scott McDermott running that team. I don't think that the Patriots are ready to catch them yet.
No, I don't think so either. And it felt like the Bills had a great opportunity last year. They just barely, missed going to the Super Bowl last year. I like the Bills here as well. And I don't think it's going to be all that close, to be honest with you. All right. AFC North, who you got?
AFC North, this is tough. To me, it comes down to the Bengals and the Ravens. I don't know if I'm completely sold on the Bengals doing it again, but the Ravens didn't really do anything to kind of help themselves offensively wise, or, helping out kind of Lamar Jackson. It kind of seems like a lot of a one-man show over there. I think the Bengals have a better defense. So for that reason, I am going to go with the Bengals over the Ravens.
All right. Well, I'm going the opposite direction, and I am going to go with the Ravens. I'm sure that I'll get bit in the butt on this one, but I need to see the Bengals be more than just 1 year. You know what I mean?
Right. That's what's hindering me too.
Yeah. So I'll go with a little bit more of the proven commodity in the Ravens on this one, but your point is valid. So that's our first disagreement. I like it. All right. AFC South.
This not a great division. Kind of bored. Like, the Titans play good football, but it's just mainly built on good defense, running the ball. Tannehill's really nothing special. I really like the Colts to win this division this year. I like Jonathan Taylor is a beast. I don't think he'll have quite, the season he did last year, but that's hard to do that back-to-back years. I still think he'll have a good year. I think Matt Ryan, an experienced quarterback, is a good pickup. Yeah, from Wentz. They have a good wide receiver room, with Pittman and oh man, there's a couple. There's another guy I know I should think of who the name is. And then their defense is just really stout. So I just think offensively they can do more than what the Titans can. Derrick Henry's getting old. You saw the injuries kind of last year. He's going into, any running back that's nearing 30 in the NFL that's not a good sign. So I'm going to go with the Colts.
Okay. And for everything that you just said, I'm also going to go with the Colts. I don't think they're going to have the breakdowns that they did last year at the end of the season. They had everything lined up for them to win the division last year, and they blew it. And I think that the Titans are going to take a step back where the Colts are going to take a step forward. I think it's going to kind of, they're going to separate themselves a little bit here this year, I think. And I think this is going to be a revitalized Matt Ryan. He actually has a team around him. He's got a pretty decent offensive line. Our boy Danny Pinner is going to be starting at guard.
The Colts have a very good offensive line, too.
And they got a great run game, so he doesn't have to be the team. You know what I mean? So
right.
I think this is going to be a great season for the Colts, if I'm being honest. So
yeah, they're going to have a very solid year. I don't think they're going to wow you in a lot, but they're just going to play good, solid football.
I think they're going to win a lot of games, though.
Yeah. Well, good, solid football, being able to run the ball, good defense, that's going to win you a lot of games in the NFL.
Absolutely. All right. AFC West.
I'm glad you saved this one for last.
I know.
This is going to be the hardest division in the AFC. And this is hard because I think, man, any of these teams could really win the division considering, Derek Carr is a very good quarterback. If you look at his stats and then you add a guy like Devontae Adams, the Broncos obviously picked up, Russell Wilson. So they addressed kind of their concerns already with a pretty good defense. The Chiefs just have, the guy named Patrick Mahomes, and you got Kelsey. He's still kind of tearing it up. And then you got the young Chargers. Herbert is just an animal himself. They have maybe some questions at wide receiver of who's going to be the guy. I really don't know who's going to win this division. I want to say the Chiefs, but I just don't think they're going to do it again this year. I'm going to go with the Broncos. I think I think with Russell Wilson combined, they have a really good their defense last year was good. And you put in a guy like Russell Wilson into that offense, they have good young wide receivers. Jerry Jeudy's going to have a guy who can throw him the ball. Cortland Sutton's going to have a guy who can throw him the ball. They have good tight ends as well. As much as I don't like the Broncos or Russell Wilson, I think that they're just going to have a better product. So I'm going to go with the Broncos. I think, kind of we'll get back to this, but I think the other two AFC wildcard teams are going to come for that division as well.
Oh, wow. All right. So almost the entire division's coming to the playoffs. I like
Yes.
Okay. So this one was you said it. This one was the hardest one to pick. I still think the Chargers have one of the best rosters in the NFL. And, if you just go position group by position group, I feel like they will trump most of the AFC, which is scary. And I think that Herbert is finally kind of coming into his own. I think he's ready to kind of take that next step, kind of put his team on his shoulders, make some waves in the playoffs. I've got the Chargers winning the West, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things go because there's a lot of talent out West. But I also think, and this is kind of foreboding for my wild card picks, I think they're going to beat up on each other too, which I think can hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, having to play, the 6 teams, you play 6 games within the same. Right. It takes a toll on you. And you're going to beat up on each other. Absolutely.
All right, so let's move over to the NFC. Who is your East champion? I know where your heart lies, but what does your brain say?
This one's really hard. Cowboys since 1995 or 6. I can't remember what it was. One of those years.
Were you even born?
96. So right around the time I was born. They haven't put together back-to-back double-digit win seasons since that time. And so, last year they won 11 games. This year obviously would mean that streak. And then, they also haven't won the division. I think the NFC East hasn't been won back-to-back years in a really long time as well. The Cowboys are hurting an offensive line. They just went out and signed Jason Peters at tackle, but he's 40 years old. They're crippled at wide receiver. Michael Gallup will be back at some point, but he's coming off an ACL tear to end his season last year. I just think the Eagles did more in the offseason with adding a lot of defensive talent. I think they had a better offseason. They addressed their issues. The Cowboys were set on, not really doing a lot in free agency and relying on their draft picks. And, some guys have gotten hurt, and that's come back to bite them. So I think that division comes down to the last week, but I think the Eagles are going to sneak it out by a game or a half a game.
You're just an Ian Book fan. That's your problem.
You caught me.
No, so you know what? And I don't know if it's just because I feel bad for your dad right now or what, but
I told him he doesn't need to watch any Cowboys if he's having,
if he's having heart problems.
Yeah, I was like, that's the last thing is the stress you need is watching Cowboys games. I said, maybe you should take a break for the first month and not watch them.
Oh, man. I don't know that I've ever picked the Cowboys, so maybe that'll be a good thing for you guys. And so I did pick the Cowboys out of the East. I agree with you that I think the Eagles did a lot to help themselves.
AJ Brown, I forgot about that.
No, you're absolutely right. It's going to be interesting. I don't know why. Call it a gut feeling. I'm going with the Cowboys.
All right. I need to address something from Jonathan Gabrick here.
Okay.
I've been letting some stray bullets go, but the Cowboys defense sucks is a big statement to be thrown out there. They have a potential defensive player of the year. They should have had, it was the clear defensive rookie of the year last year. You could have made the contention that no one in football can do what he does, given that he can rush the quarterback. He can fit holes in the run game. He can cover just about anyone in coverage. He still runs about a 4.4. They got lucky. He makes up for a lot of their deficiencies on defense, but they sucked 2 years ago. They don't suck now. Okay. Travion Diggs gives up yards. I'll take turnovers. Giving the offense another possession, that's fine. I'm just going to end there because we could.
There you go.
When you talk about the Cowboys,
you're getting passionate.
Man,
it's coming.
Some layers will come unraveled.
You're an onion, Stiers. That's all there is to it. Okay, let's move over to the NFC North, where there's a lot of mediocre football, in my opinion. But who is going to rise out of the North?
This is where do you? The Lions are almost there. I think
they're starting to prove themselves. I'll give you that.
I think the Lions will have a better season than the Bears will, and that's maybe an insult.
I don't know if that's setting the bar very high, but all right.
I think that I think that the Packers will find a way to win the division yet again. You have a back-to-back MVP guy. I've heard good things about their defense. Coming out of camp. I'm not a big believer in Kirk Cousins. I know they have some good pieces with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. But I think it goes Packers, Lions, Vikings, Bears. But yeah, I think you'll see a solid Lions team this year. I think they're right on the verge of kind of breaking out of that shell. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Packers.
Okay. I will never choose the Packers, but I do feel – I just don't know who Rodgers is going to throw the ball to. And I know he can make people better because he's a good quarterback and all of those different things.
You just got to see it happen first.
I need to see it, and I'm not – I don't want to see it, obviously, as a Bears fan. Of course, I'm not picking the Bears, and I can't for the life of me pick the Lions. So process of elimination, I've got to go with the Vikings on this one. I just – will the Lions be better than the Bears? Okay, I can be on board with that. But, again, that doesn't say a whole lot to me. I think the Vikings are going to take the division. I don't think the Packers are going to be much further behind, but I think the Vikings will get it in the end. So we'll see what happens on that one. All right, let's go someplace that I don't have a dog in the fight. Let's go. This might be the easiest one, the NFC South.
It is easy, but the Bucs have been kind of having a lot of preseason. Brady was gone for 10 to 11 days. Their offensive line is taking some big hits. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers just because they have Tom Brady. But I guess I don't be surprised if we see the Falcons, Panthers, Saints be obviously better than what they were last year. I don't think they're going to be super contenders, but they're going to be better. I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year, especially the Falcons. Anxious to see what Baker looks like with the Panthers. And then, Jameis Winston, I've heard a lot of people say, who would your dark horse candidate be for MVP, or a guy that, might not know what not a lot of people are thinking of. If Jameis can limit his interceptions, I think that he could have a really good season.
That's the key, though.
Yeah,
That is the key.
It's a big if when you're playing quarterback.
I don't know if there's any MVP that's ever thrown 30 interceptions in a season, so
right.
I don't know how I feel
But yeah,
about
at
that,
the end of the day, I'm gonna go the Buccaneers. I just don't think the division will be as bad as it was last year.
All right, I'll keep it simple. I'm going with the Buccaneers as well. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of competition. I think they win it going away. All right, NFC West. Who you got coming out of the West?
The Rams.
Yep.
They're returning too much. They looked like a well-oiled machine last year. There's the Kyler Murray drama is just too much for me. Trey Lance's first-year starter, and the Seahawks just really don't have a quarterback. So
right.
I'm going to go with the Rams.
Yep, could not agree more. Okay, here's where it's going to get interesting. AFC wild card. Who do you got?
AFC wild card for me comes down to 3 teams, and it's going to be the Patriots, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. I think that the Chargers will definitely get one of those spots, and I think the Chiefs will get the other one. And over the Patriots. Patriots are in a little bit easier of a division, like we talked about, which bodes well for their overall record. And then obviously you have, a great coach, but I just think that the Chiefs are more talented and will sneak it out in the last couple of weeks of the season.
Well, you picked the Ravens, right? I picked the Ravens in the North. You picked the Bengals. We flipped it. I've got the Bengals in the wild card, and I've got the Chiefs in the wild card. Nice. So I think we may have ended up with the same actual playoff teams, just different ways of getting in. So
right.
Chiefs, Bengals are my wild cards. The NFC wild card situation. Where are you going here?
I don't foresee another team really coming out of the North. I think, one team will come out of there. I think one team comes out of the South. So to me, it comes down to the East and the West. I think the Cowboys will take one of those playoff spots. And then I think the other one will come down to the Cardinals and Niners, and more than likely come down to the Cardinals. I don't think that the Niners are quite going to do it yet with, a first-year quarterback. So I'll go Cowboys and Cardinals as my wild card teams.
All right. And I will also take the Cardinals as one of my wild card picks. But my next one, as much as it pains me, they're coming out of the North, and it'll be the Pack, and they will most likely lose that first-round game because they're real good at doing that. But it'll probably be somehow it'll be a home game. Something will happen, like another stadium will get blown up, and it'll be a home game for them, and they'll lose, which is even better. But I've got the Packers and the Cardinals as a wild card teams for me. All right, who's in the Super Bowl? Who wins?
Oh boy! Oh man! The Super Bowl will come down to the Buffalo Bills. I think it's the Bills' year. They were just there last year.
Yep.
They got screwed by not being able to touch the ball in overtime, which is ludicrous in my opinion. And then in the NFC, this is, I think it comes down to the Rams and the Rams.
The Rams and the Rams.
Just looking at paper right now, no one from the North and the South, like I said, really is like, wow, that team's pressing for a Super Bowl. And I want to say, the heart in me wants to say the Cowboys because I know they have a lot of talent, but they just never really follow through with their talent. Like someone brought up the penalties and the coaching, and that's the hardest part is they just never seem to kind of, with all the talent they have, to put things together. So to me, it's going to be the Bills and the Rams, but hopefully, the Cowboys can make a run there towards the end.
Who's hosting the trophy?
The Bills.
I have the exact same matchup. I have Bills and Rams.
The Bills are hoisting that bad boy.
And I also have the Bills winning it. I think this could be their year. So
it's hard to win anything back to back.
It's very difficult.
I think it's, you see the grind of the season, especially at the NFL level. The Bills were just like one play away last year. And I just think that, they added pieces on defense. They have one of the better defenses, like the Rams do. And Josh Allen is just a stud. He's I don't know how else to put it. He's very mobile. He's hard to bring down. He's got a laser arm. He makes good decisions. It's a really good quarterback.
Yep, I agree completely. And I just feel like the Bills were right there on the doorstep, and they're going to want it. They're going to be hungry for it, and I think they're going to win it, and there's just going to be a lot of broken tables around the country. So there it is.
Broken shoulders, broken arms.
Yeah, a lot of broken. A lot of broken.
You name it.
All right, Jess. Thanks for hopping on a Labor Day. I really appreciate it. Unknown as to whether we will have a show tomorrow or not. We will let you guys know. We will keep you posted in the Twitterverse as to whether there will be an IB Nation Sports Talk show tomorrow. But we shall see. But you know what? We gave you a little extra today. We gave you an extra 21 minutes today. So we gave you some overtime. So that should be good. That should hold you over, depending. We will definitely have a show on Wednesday. Brian is going to join me. We are going to do a open mailbag, and Brian is going to participate. So we are going to have a Wednesday night free-for-all mailbag on Wednesday. So make sure you tune in at 6 o'clock. And of course, tomorrow, Brian and the guys will have a show at 1 o'clock. So make sure you tune into that as well. So, we do have a couple super chats I do need to get to before we get out of here. Garth Cassidy, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, when Jarrett Patterson is back fully healthy, I'm putting back at center because what I saw on Saturday night, Zeke Correll ain't it. I disagree, but we'll wait and see. Garth, we'll wait and see. And then Bobby Ray. Thank you, brother.
No comment, just the 20 bomb.
Just the hey, man, and we will take it and we will enjoy it. And I appreciate it, Bobby. Thanks for tuning in with us tonight. Tonight was a lot of fun, Jess. So thanks a lot for joining me. I hope you enjoy Ohio. I did not, but that's okay.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know I get going sometimes, so I appreciate everyone listening to me.
That's why I love having you on, my brother. And yes, speedy recovery to Sean as well. Sean update. He is doing well. He is fatigued, that kind of stuff. So we're giving him time off. He's going to relax and recuperate. And by the time he gets back, he's going to be better than ever.
Better than ever, baby.
That's right. So for Jess, I'm Vince. This is IB Nation Sports Talk.